Everyone thinks because you're a zombie, you don't know good coffee. Well, they're wrong. There's only one brew that gets my seal of approval. Deadly Grounds coffee is my guilty pleasure. The aroma is so intoxicating. It brings all of my neighbors out of the woodwork. Deadly Grounds coffee. Coffee to die for and zombie approved. It's good to get a little deadly. Use the front door! Oh, they're so disgusting.
The Dorkening and all affiliated shows are not intended for anyone under the age of 18. The following may contain discussions or scenes that have adult situations, graphic violence, nudity, strong sexual content, and graphic language. This show is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised.
Okay, I have accidentally done the wrong one. Okay, let's try that again.
Everyone thinks because you're a zombie, you don't know good coffee. Well, they're wrong. There's only one brew that gets my seal of approval. Deadly Grounds coffee is my guilty pleasure. The aroma is so intoxicating. It brings all of my neighbors out of the woodwork. Deadly Grounds coffee. Coffee to die for and zombie approved. It's good to get a little deadly. Use the front door! Oh, they're so disgusting.
The Dorkening and all affiliated shows are not intended for anyone under the age of 18. The following may contain discussions or scenes that have adult situations, graphic violence, nudity, strong sexual content, and graphic language. This show is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised.
Okay, hello, my lovelies. I am finally got my ducks in a row. Everything else is in nice, neat folders. But tonight, my videos aren't, so we're going to get that straight. With us tonight, we have the amazing Jamie Sizemore, and he's going to tell us about being a funeral director and an embalmer. And I have just been looking forward to this since I was a teenager, because I just wanted to know what was happening when my parents passed away. And now we can finally ask a whole bunch of questions, and he has graciously agreed to be here with us. Thank you so much for being here, sir.
You're very welcome.
Tell us about you and how you became a funeral director.
Well, it's kind of a crazy story. I worked for a private ambulance service, and we got to know a funeral home very well. We did their removals or pickups for them, and I got to know the gentleman who owned it, and he one night said, you've got an attitude for it, and you get through school and you'll have a job. So unfortunately, he passed away before I got finished through school, but I still ended up in the place that where it all began. So 17 years later, here I am, and still at it as much as I can. So that's how it started. It was just one of those fluke things, because I tell you what, as a kid, I was scared to death, scared of funeral homes, and I didn't want anything to do with them. Kid in my class, his dad was our local undertaker in the small town I grew up in, and they had a haunted house there one year, and oh man, never ever wanted to go back ever. But here, it's just how it works out, I guess.
Life takes you to some odd places. I didn't expect to be here whenever I was a teenager, and I'm glad I'm here now.
Yeah.
What happens? Okay, let me rephrase. Which do you get more of? The deaths from funeral home, hospital, accidents, or homes?
There's really no rhyme or reason to it. They come from everywhere, every which way. They happen out of state. I've had them out of country, to get them back here. So there's no rhyme or reason to where they come from. I mean, there's a variety of nursing homes, hospitals, accident victims that have to go to the coroner's office for, examination. And then, there's just a whole variety of things. There's no, so many of this and so many of that. I mean, when it's your time, we get the call, if they want their loved one to come to us, then that's what they do, no matter where they're at. Like I said, I've gotten people from across the ocean and gotten them back to the States, and, back into our small town here in Lima, Ohio. So, that's, it takes a lot of paperwork and a lot of coordination, but it can happen.
Okay. How does a loved one, when they come in, how does the funeral process start? Hey, I would like to do a funeral with you. What do I do next?
Sure. So basically how it starts is with a phone call. They call us, we pick up their loved ones, and we make contact with them. If it's in the middle of the night, we usually wait till the next morning. We bring them to the funeral home and hold them until we can get a hold of them, because we don't do any kind of work or anything on them until, we have their permission. Of course, we get, at least verbal permission, and then we make up an arrangement time for them to come in and finalize the arrangements. But what's nice, and I always encourage people to do, is, if they have their funerals pre-planned, then if we have their, records there, then we already know kind of what they want to do, and we can just go ahead and get started with everything at that point, because they've already signed off that this is what they want, and it's taken care of through there. So
okay.
So when after that comes in, when you come to the funeral home, you'll go into an arrangement room. The funeral director, he'll seat you, give you a copy of the. Excuse me, I got the hiccups a little bit. Give you, a general idea of, what to plan for, what to expect in the next, usually it takes around an hour or so. Some take less, some take more. There's no real set guidelines to it. Every situation is different. People, even if their loved one had been suffering for, from cancer or something for years, and they knew it was coming, when the time actually comes, it still hits them like a brick. And I've had people just come in and just shrug their shoulders like, I don't know what to do. And those are the hard ones, because you gotta just, you hold their hand through it, in which, that's what we do. Happy to do it to help people out. But it's not an experience people enjoy or want to do. It's something that they kind of have to do, at least, a couple times in their life, if not more. And, unfortunately, I've lost my parents. I know we were talking before, and you've been in that situation as well. And, I try to be very open with people. If there's something that I can or can't do, I want them to know that. I want them to know that, they call us, we're morticians, we're not magicians. There's only so much of that we can do, and I'd never want to disappoint anybody, but again, I'm not going to lie to somebody and tell them, I can do this and I can do that. If I can't do it, you just have to be very honest with families, and that's what I do, and that's why I've had people come back to me and call me, on my cell phone, hey Jamie, what do I do? And so, it's okay. That's what I'm here for.
Okay. Do you get decedents that have been autopsied more than those who haven't, or is there an odd ratio?
No, we get, I'd say it's probably maybe 75-25, the ones that are not to the ones that are. Again, that it could happen. You get once, one every month or two, and then all of a sudden you could get 3 or 4 or 5 of them in a row. There's no rhyme or reason to it. It's just how it works out sometimes, and it's just one of those things that, and the autopsies are sometimes a little harder to take care of and to prepare, but again, it can be done, and hopefully without much notice. But sometimes, especially with people with no hair like myself, that makes things a little tougher. But again, we have things that we can do to try to fix that and make it okay.
Okay. A person has come in and they've decided they'd like to have their loved one buried. What would be the steps they would take?
Well, when you come in and we kind of have an idea, because people, when you make that first call, they kind of say, well, here's what we're thinking. They just want you to know what their plans are, because they've obviously talked to their family and gotten things kind of started, especially if it's mom or dad. Brothers and sisters have to kind of talk about things, and kind of you already kind of have an idea. Or do they want to be buried? Do they want to be cremated? What do we want to show them before? Or, what do we, they already kind of have that idea. So usually on that first call, they kind of give you an idea. Mom's got a burial plot here. Dad, he has this, or, they have some kind of idea of what to do. So you already kind of have your wheels spinning, whether you need to have the cremation authorization started, or, you start calling, the cemetery, making sure that their plot is there. There's so many phone calls that have to be done to make sure that it kind of goes off without a hitch. I mean, you got caskets, you've got your burial vaults, you've got churches, your pastors. You got to make sure you email the newspaper for the obituary. I mean, there's so many things. There's a checklist, and there's 15 or 16 things on that checklist. You got to go through and check every one of them. And I additionally put the date and time that I called and made contact with them, just so that I know that I was taken care of. And if there's something that you forget and you've done it or whatever, I've made 2 phone calls just to make sure that it's been done, because I'll tell you what, that would be one thing I would not want to do, is show up at a cemetery and nobody be there or not be ready. That would be horrendous. And unfortunately, that has never happened. So knock on wood, that will never happen. But again, we are humans; things can happen, but we try not to let anything of that magnitude ever, get there. So we try to be pretty thorough on things.
Do you allow viewings before cremation?
Actually, you have to. In the state, you have to have somebody come in and identify the body, which we have them usually on a dressing table. It's basically a table with wheels on it. We have it in a viewing room, and the family, whoever, I mean, they can have one person, they can have 5 people, 10 people, whatever. But we at least have to have one family member that signs off on the authorization to go ahead with cremation. They have to view the body and say, yes, that's them. And, we have them, they're just as if we were embalming them, they're fixed and made to look like they're resting, peacefully. Pillow, blanket, the whole lot. I mean, we make them try to look like they're just, comfortable. Like that's, they're resting easy. They're not struggling. nothing like that. And so we do our best to make it as comfortable as we can for the families, because we know they're already hurting, and we know they're already grieving, and we try to help alleviate some of that and help them through that. We don't want to make things any worse for them, of course.
Okay. What are the steps for choosing caskets?
It used to be you'd have to go in a room, and there were 10 or 15 different caskets to look at. People, they kind of got freaked out by that. They didn't care for that. So a lot of the funeral or the casket companies have come out with pictures, like programs for that you can bring up on your computer. And usually the meeting rooms have large screen TVs in them, so they can actually bring up the different pictures. Mom wanted a wood casket with like a pink interior, so we can put all those parameters in and show them all of the different choices that they can get with that. I will say that the production, they're not quite as many as there used to be. The choice is kind of they have kind of scaled back on all the amenities that are available color wise and stuff like that. I mean they're still very nice, don't get me wrong, but just not as many to choose from. And I don't know why they've done that. That's not something I've been privy to. You get to show them what's available and what they have in the warehouse and stuff available.
I didn't know you could choose the color for the inside of the interior.
Yeah, there's a few different colors. There's like you can get them like in a taupe or like a tan color, pink color, white. Sometimes there's all different ones. I know when my grandfather passed away, we put him in. He was a woodworker, so I found him the neatest inlaid casket with a nice interior, and it just all worked out. So you just have to kind of have an idea of what you're looking for, and then we kind of can show you what's available. And they usually find something that they can agree upon.
Okay. How does one go about finding out the steps for going from you picking up the decedent to the cremation?
So when we pick the body up, again, we bring it back to the funeral home, and we try to call the family if we don't already know that they're going to be a cremation. Like if we have no idea, who this person is or whatever, we call the information we get from the hospital or the nursing home of the next of kin, and we try to call them and just touch base with them and let them know that we have picked them up, and just kind of get an idea whether what they're thinking of, if they know if they want to be, if they want a viewing, if they want that, so that we can. We try to, if they're going to be embalmed, we try to get that done, as soon as we can, and getting them back to the funeral home, just for the fact that, I wouldn't want, my loved one to just lay there without any kind of attention. I try to get to them as soon as I can, so that we can, have the best possible outcome on that. So that's where we are, and then if they know that they're going to be a cremation, we will put the body in some type of a cooler or refrigeration unit to hold them until because sometimes the meeting isn't until the next day or two, depending if they're waiting for family to come in from out of town or whatever that might be. So we want to make sure that we hold them so that the family can again, they have to identify them before that, and Ohio requires 48 hours, and you have to have a signed death certificate before we can proceed with the cremation. So we got to make sure we have all of our ducks in a row before that happens.
What? Hold on. This thing is giving issues. Okay, do you have people who ask to have their loved ones not embalmed and be buried?
Yes. Embalming is not required. However, funeral homes do have the right to inform the families that they do require it just for sanitation and preservation purposes, to have a full public viewing. Embalming, I believe, is the best way to do that. Trying to show and get an unembalmed body ready for a public viewing can be a really bad experience for everybody. So, we try to, we're very honest and tell them that, here's why we want to do this. And we give them, the reasonings. Now, if they still don't want it, then we would say, well, we would just like to have just, not a public visitation just for private family, and then, go directly to the cemetery. And that would, again, that would be the best for everybody. Just for, we don't want any bad thoughts and last memories of folks. So, we do what we can to make things as well as we can for the families.
Okay. This might seem like a graphic question, but in our case, my dad had arrived at the funeral home rather bloated.
Mm-hmm.
You get those type of cases often.
Well, there are times when we get what you would call an unattended death, if the person lived by themselves, and unfortunately they passed away maybe a day, a week. We've had them 2 weeks. We've had them 3 weeks. I mean, they hadn't heard from them, and they went to do a welfare check, and all of a sudden, they find them, deceased, and it's there. There's only so much we can do in a certain time frame. There's things we can do for that, but once it gets to a certain point, there's not much we can do. And again, that's where you kind of have to trust your funeral director. Because we want to try to help the families through this. We don't want to make it any tougher on them than it already is. And they're already going to feel bad about not knowing that they've passed away for however long it was. And then if there's nothing we can do, then we just have to be very honest with the family and say, this is more than what we can save, who we can handle without there being any anything wrong with that. So we want to make sure that people understand that.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
What are the steps when you embalm the decedent?
Well, of course, they're on a table, and on an embalming table, excuse me. We make an incision and pull up an artery and a vein, and we put what they call a cannula goes into the artery, and then the embalming fluid goes in and replaces the blood in the body. And it also goes into all the capillaries and kind of preserves the body to make it, and I've had bodies that have lasted, a couple of weeks. Actually, we had one gentleman, his family was trying to get across from Japan. We held him for almost 5 weeks and no refrigeration or anything. He was, he embalmed very, very well. So, it's a case by case basis. There's no rhyme or reason to it. It's not a perfect science. Everybody is different. Everybody's got a different pH level. There's all kinds of factors that go into that. And if you get into the microbiology, which I never thought I'd ever talk about again after I got out of mortuary school, but there's a lot of different factors, and we have to take all that into consideration as an embalmer. You've got a lot of decisions that you got to make, and you got to really think things through on some things, because if something's not working, then you've got to try something else. And we've got a lot of plays in the playbook, but again, there's no real rhyme or reason, or there's no perfect science to it. So we just got to do the best we can, and take care of the family and the decedents as well as we can.
Okay. What are the steps for cremation?
Again, same thing. We hold the body in refrigeration until we have them ID'd. We have to get a signed death certificate by the doctor. As soon as we have that, we can go ahead with the cremation. We take them to the crematory. We turn them over, sign them over to the crematory. They take control of the body, and then the cremation occurs. If you're not familiar with how cremation occurs, we put them in a cremation container, which is usually like a heavy cardboard box. They go into what we call a retort, which is the furnace, what people would call the furnace. It's been called so many different things in my days. I tell you what people call it when they come in, they don't know what it is. So if I say something that you don't understand, please ask, and I will clarify. But it takes about 3.5 to 4 hours for a cremation to complete. Very high heat, of course, and then cremains are very thoroughly swept out, and when we say that that's your loved one, if it is, we try to do, we strive at zero, but of course that's never going to be a guarantee. Commingling with anybody else, we do one body at a time. We don't do multiples. Some people say, oh, I've heard they do 5 at a time. No, we do 1 at a time. We never, if people do like pet cremations, they have to have a separate retort for that. They cannot do pets and animals in the same, or bodies, human bodies and pets in the same retort. It has to be 2 different machines. So, and they are thing, I've worked in the crematories, and they are, at least when I did it, and I know, everybody that I worked with, they took great care in making sure that, it's very thoroughly cleaned out before, you do the next one. So, and basically that's, they, have to pulverize the remaining pieces, and they put them all in a bag and in a cremation container, and then they're returned to the funeral home after that's done. And the family will decide if they want to put them in an urn and bury them, or what they would like to do. A lot of people have been scattering their loved ones, and that's been a topic of conversation. There's nothing really hazardous in spreading cremains. It's not something that you really want to publicize. If it's a public place, you kind of do it, whatever. And I'm not saying that's the right thing to do, but when they do spread the cremains, there's nothing hazardous to them. So I want people to know that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Do they allow aquamation cremation in Ohio?
I will tell you, there was a funeral home in Columbus, Ohio, that started, has all of everything available and ready to do that, but it has not, to my knowledge, been approved by the state board of embalmers and funeral directors. I don't know what the holdup is on it. I am not personally really well versed on that. I know of it, but I've never really dealt with it. So I know that is a form that it can be done, but it's just not something that's recognized by our state as of yet. Now that may have changed recently that I don't know about, but last I knew is that it's it's in their garage and waiting to be used. But I know that there are a couple places that are set up for it, but just hasn't been approved yet by our board.
What about the compost?
Again, I don't know much about that. That's something that I haven't really dealt much with. I know that some of them, after cremation, they will, put some of the cremains like with a new tree or something like that. They have done that, but the actual composting, I don't. I know with the green burials, we've done a few of those, but if they're buried, all of our local cemeteries require a outer burial container or a vault because of when the ground settles, it leaves quite a backfill where they have to go back and fix that, and it causes the ground to sink in. So they require that outer burial container to help with the ground settling and everything. So green burials, I've witnessed a couple of them. I've never personally done one of those myself. I just know that they have been done. But again, if they want to be buried, they do have to be put into one of those vaults, some type of an outer burial container, and that's because all the cemeteries around here at least require that.
Will you explain the green burial?
Basically, they put them in that looks like a basket weaved box container, and they're not embalmed. They just want to be placed in there and put in the ground as soon as possible and let nature take its course. A lot of people, they don't want all the pomp and circumstance of a traditional funeral, as you might be aware of. They just want, some people just want it simple, done, over with. They say, put me in a pine box and bury me. There's some people that live by that, and they're like, I don't want anything except for put me in the ground, and that's it. I don't want anything else.
Okay. Can you help explain like the terminology that you use? Like, Pyle had said that some funeral homes use the word guest to describe the decedent. Or what other words you might use to explain things to the family as you set up the steps?
We really don't have, other, funeral directors and embalmers, we learn a lot of things, but when it comes to talking to the public, we try to be fairly, we want to use terms that you'll understand. We want to talk to you like we're talking here. If people, when they want to know about things, you try to give them the best answer they can, because you don't want to be real graphic about things. People know, they have an idea. They've seen movies, they've seen, documentaries, whatever, and they have an idea of what happens. And we had to tell them that it's really not exactly like you see in the movies. And there's a whole different aura, with that. It's not a black room and candles and creepy music and all this stuff. It is absolutely nothing like. Usually, preparation rooms are usually white. They are, we use a lot of bleach and disinfectants in there. So they're actually very clean. One of the cleanest rooms you'll probably want to ever step foot in, because we do have to, take proper steps, after each time that we do things, to make sure that we kill any bacteria, any infection, or anything like that. We don't want it as embalmers, and we surely don't want to pass it on to another body, especially if we have, something, whatever it is, and spread anything, of course, or make anybody sick. We definitely don't want to do that.
Do you talk to the decedent as you prepare them, or do you have like a playlist or an audiobook you guys listen to while you're doing your preparation?
Well, I do talk to them, and I don't want to seem weird by that, but it kind of helps in the overall of doing things. I just find myself kind of explaining what I'm doing to, as I'm doing it. Or if things just aren't working, I'm like, come on, you got to work with me here, and you just kind of, I don't want you to think I'm crazy or weird or anything like that. It's just, there's just sometimes that you got to talk to them and just like, you got to work with me here a little bit, we got to get this, help me with this, work with me a little bit. And, I'll tell you what, more times than others, they'll say, oh, he was a stubborn one. And I was like, yes, he is. He absolutely is, and they seem to keep their stubbornness going even after they pass away, and it's kind of funny. But to have a full-blown conversation, no. We have a radio in there. Some prep rooms actually have a TV in them. I've seen. Ours does not. We listen to music in ours, which is okay. I don't want to watch TV because I'm doing stuff like that. I've heard of places doing that. I have to keep my mind focused on, what I'm doing.
Okay. I don't think you're weird, and you're not the first one I've heard that say that they have talked to the body. I
Yeah,
just wondered if it was like, because I know even though they've passed, you still want to show them the same respect.
sure.
Why should
And
that change just because they're not talking like we are?
correct. And something else, I'm very, and I hope that I speak for most funeral directors and embalmers. I show the body dignity. I cover them. I don't let them just lay there on the table, completely, without clothes or nothing like that. I cover them, as much as I can during that period of embalming. And, I treat people as I would want to be treated, when I'm laying there someday. I don't want to be, exposed, even though it's a locked room and nobody, not many people have access to it. But I still try to protect, people's modesty, even after they've passed. I mean, yeah, that's, they're most vulnerable at that point, even though the spirit might not be there. I treat people as I would want to treat my own family, and I have embalmed my own family. My grandfather, my grandmother, uh, you know, it's, kind of what, you kind of get what you give, and I give respect to people, and I get respect from people, and that's what you have to do in this industry to make it and be successful in it.
Yes, I can see how the whole industry is a complete. The more respect, the better everything smooths out.
Right.
Um, when you guys are having the part, in do you guys have a chapel or do you guys send them to the church?
They can do either. The services are they either the funeral home usage. There's two. The place that I help with. I'm not currently an active funeral director embalmer. I just do it part time to help. I was involved in a near fatal accident a few years ago, so I'm kind of limited with mobility, back, hip issues. So I still do, some part time work when I can. But when I was working, I've worked in some larger cities like Columbus. I did work in Columbus, Ohio, for a little bit, and that was crazy. I mean, you could get up to 15 calls in a night down there. So, I mean, there was 4 chapels, and there was times where there were 16, 18-hour days, if not longer sometimes. Um, so, I mean, it just depends. And I've worked, in our town where, when we've gotten just as, not that busy, but I mean, we've had several calls in the night come in before, and it gets kind of hectic. So, um, it is, where, whatever you can, do for the family, if they want to, do a service at the funeral home, if they want to do a service at the church, if they want to do it at a BFW hall. I mean, we've went a lot of places. One time we even did it at a chapel at the hospital so that their family that was in the hospital could come down and be part of the service. We wheeled a casket right into the chapel at the hospital. So, we'll do whatever we can as long as we have the permission to do it. We do what we can to help the family, because right now, like I said, they're at their most vulnerable when that happens. They're lost. They really don't know what, but I promise you, if you take care of that family, they will remember you. I mean, I have people come up and still hug me to this day. They see me at the store, they see me wherever. They don't forget me, and I appreciate that fact. That means I've done my job and what I need to do to help them.
That makes me feel better to know that funeral directors do get random hugs from people who are very appreciative.
We do. To this day, I mean, I have families that have basically adopted me in their family. Been to get-togethers at their homes. I've been invited to a lot of things. I mean, their grandkids' graduations. I took care of their grandfather, but they're you really do kind of become part of their family for that time, because they depend on you for a lot. They need to make sure, because they don't know, and that's my job to make sure that is done for them. and you take care of them the best that you can. Do everything in my power to make things right, even when it comes right down to the color of the flowers on the casket. You try to get them, everything that you can possibly do for them, we do, and they do remember you, and that's one thing that I'm grateful for, is that when you do a good job, they make sure to let you know that.
That is amazing. Do the funerals themselves differ often?
There are a lot of yes, they do. I'm going to go back to working in Columbus again. I learned a lot of different religious services. I learned Hindu services. We had services for Muslim folks. There was a whole new learning process when it came down there. We learned a lot of different services and way different customs and different cultures celebrate and the death of somebody. And some of them they call it a celebration. Some people go, "You're crazy. Why? It's not a time to celebrate." Well, it is. I mean, some people, it's a life well lived, and they're there to honor that, and whatever they got to do to you know uh, to honor their loved ones, they do it. And there are some traditions out there. It just shocked me when some of them came up. I was like, didn't know that. There's some cultures that somebody has to stay with that body until they bury them the next day. So there's somebody that actually stays in the funeral home in that room with them until the next day when they take them and they bury them. And there's some that have different things. Some of them, their cremation services are. It's very. There's a lot of knowledge to that. They teach you in a hurry what you need to do, so you kind of try to read up on it, but they'll tell you, and that was something I always stressed to them. I need you to tell me because I am not familiar with this, and they're very good about that. There's somebody that will lead you, somebody that's in their religious sect or whatever, that will tell you what they need to do, and you take a lot of notes because you got to make sure that you do it, and then they'll bring business back to you, and they'll bring other people to you because you do honor their wishes, you do things the way they want it done, and that's the name of the game right there. Is you get your name out there as somebody that'll take care of them, and that's what you strive for.
That is awesome. What are some takeaways you had from different funerals?
Boy, in my, like I said, I've been in the business upwards of 20 years. I worked at a funeral home a little bit before I went to mortuary school, so I kind of, knew what I was getting into, and I've been in a lot of experiences, in, planning full services for a local sheriff that passed away, with the honor guards and everything. That was a lot of work, but it was very fulfilling to know that it went off basically without a hitch, and that makes you feel good about getting things done, in a timely manner, the way it needs to be done. I don't know. There's just been a lot of things that have happened in my career that have left an imprint on my brain. One of them was a 5-year-old child. Hardest thing I've ever done. He's in a white casket, and his favorite character was Buzz Lightyear. And my wife and I went shopping at Toys R Us and got him a Buzz Lightyear sheet set, and actually put the pillowcase on, and actually had a buddy of mine that made letters, put to infinity and beyond, and we had that on the side of the casket, and there's just some things that you just, you do what you can to help the people through it, and that meant more to that family than you could ever imagine. They they were just beside themselves, and they cried, just not because they were sad, but they couldn't believe, how things were lined up, and it was amazing. I've been through a lot of amazing things. I've been through some really sad and really trying things, but again, there's only so much we can do, and we try to make it as good as we can for the families. But sometimes we struggle with it. I'm not even gonna lie to you. There's times I cry right along with them. I do. It hurts my heart to see people hurt, but when they tell me thank you, and they hug me or say that that means that I knew I did what I needed to do, and I try to take care of that the best that I can. But there's been a lot of sleepless nights. There's been a lot of worrying, a lot of anguish. Did I do everything that I could? Did I do this? Did I do that? But knock on wood, really never had any complaints, which I'm very fortunate to be able to say that. Not too many upset, people that were just outright upset with me. Mad at the situation, just not mad at me and what I did for them. But it death brings out the weird in people sometimes. Crazy things, things have happened. Fights have broke out. It's there's a lot. I could write a book, honest to God. There are so many things that have happened that people would just shake their head. It's unbelievable. But 95% have been okay.
If you ever do, I want to buy it and I want to read it. That's one of my favorite things. In about 2012, I'm like, okay, they have biographies. Oh, and I just started buying different biographies of different professions, like the healthcare workers or the funeral directors, or anything I didn't understand. I'd buy a biography and then I'd have a greater insight. And your insight is different from the ones I've read or the ones I've shared. Like I mentioned earlier, Ask a Mortician YouTube channel, there is so much information there. But
Sure.
her information will differ from yours because she's even in a different state than she was when she started the YouTube channel.
Right.
So the general public, what is something you want them to know before they come in to talk to you? Like steps they need to have taken, or something to ease their fears, or something like that.
I guess when it comes to me, I want people to know that I'm there to help them. I'm not there to burden them with any undue, unjust, I try to save them money wherever I can. I mean, it's not, necessarily the best thing for the funeral home all the time, but, there's going to be some families that you just have to do what you have to do for them. And we do, I did, for the longest time, I did, everything I could do. And, I was very honest with people. They want to know about something, why do we want this vault? Why do we want this? And you explain things to them. I let them make the decisions that they want. I don't push anything on them. I want them to be happy with what they've picked out. And I can lay my head down at night and sleep knowing that, I'm not there, I don't want to make $1 zillion on things. That's not how it's done. I don't want people to think that, funeral directors, undertakers, whatever, we're not there to increase their anxieties and fears and make things, completely difficult. That's not what we're there for. We're there to help them at one of the most crucial points in their life. And I want people to know that. I'm not going to say that there isn't a few bad eggs in the sea. I mean, there is with every profession. You know, there's been bad people in the funeral business. I can't say that there's not, but I will say there are more good than there are bad, and I hope that I can say that for every profession. Um, you know, um, but at least the people that I know I have worked with, um, they they're on the good side. So I wouldn't hesitate to send them to anybody that I've worked with and known. I've really never worked with a bad director to this point. So very, very fortunate.
I have one more question. I know we're
Sure.
getting close to the hour, I promise. But there's
If we
one
go
thing
over,
that
I'm okay with that. So
okay, because I had been wondering this. I went to go visit my family, as I've mentioned recently,
Mhm.
at the funeral, at not the funeral, but at the cemetery.
Okay.
And I had noticed some graves have the concrete all the way over the top of the ground, and some have it to where it's just around the casket. Is there is one way better than the other, or is it a preference? What
Now
does that mean?
when you come to the burial part, I'm not as well versed on that as I am with the funeral home side. Um,
Okay.
in Ohio, I don't know of any above ground crypts like what you would see in like Louisiana or some of the places that have like a higher flood possibilities. They use like the above ground crypts where you see I saw it in your opening, some of those where they were all kind of laid out and you saw all the things above ground. They don't do those in Ohio that I know of. Um, the only thing above ground is a mausoleum. If you have one of those, but most of them are in earth burials. So I don't know of any above ground crypts. There may be. I just have not seen any. But mostly they are either placed in the mausoleum, if they went above ground, or they're buried within the 6 feet under.
Okay. Cool. I wonder who. Okay, can you tell me the name of the profession I would call to talk to find out about that?
Um, just call and talk to, call a cemetery and ask to
Okay.
speak to the, sexton or whoever takes care of them. There's, people that can answer that. But if you call anybody in Ohio, they're all going to be about the same, and they'll, God, excuse me, answer the way that I did. They just there's not much to offer in that. They don't have a lot of the above grounds here. I've only seen pictures of them, like I said, but those were down in the southern states and stuff where hurricanes and floods and stuff happen. um, I've seen pictures where where crazy things have happened when the earth floods and stuff like that. So fortunately up here we don't get a lot of that hurricane flooding situations as often, so we don't have to worry about some of the stuff that they do down there. So
Okay. Um, where where would you like people to find you? Or do you want people to find you on the internet to talk to you?
um, they can always send me a message. I'm on Facebook. um, you know um, if they get a hold of you, you have my contact info. You can always send me a message, and I'll try to respond to them or however. Um, I don't I'm really don't have I have nothing to hide. People have questions. I try to answer them like we've talked here. Um, I just I try to be on the same level as them. I don't try to act like I'm any higher or anything like that. I'm just a person that does a job. I'm there to do what I need to do. So if somebody has a question, you know, send them my way. I'll answer them the best that I can. But if they're in another state, again, I don't know that I can answer them like I can. But they're in Ohio, I know the Ohio laws, but um, different states have different variables, so I can only answer what I.
Okay. And to reiterate what Violet said, thank you for being here, a part of our show. And thank you for taking care of all the ones who have lost.
Sure,
Love.
absolutely. It's like I said, it's not always the easiest job to do, but um, it's very fulfilling, knowing that, when they come back, like I said, when they give you a hug or they come and shake your hand and they say thank you, this is the best mom's looked in years. She's been suffering for so long and she finally looks like she's at peace. That's when I know I've done my job.
Yes. And if you guys would like to find me, I'm here at Owlite. I'm at Fake Horror. I'm at My Pages Friday with the Library in the Blue Box. And just comment on anything and I'll get back to you. I'm the PA on a lot of stuff on here. Yeah. But thank you all for coming. And thank you for talking with us, Jamie. And I hope he has helped me help you guys with the fear of talking to the funeral director and getting started on finding out what plans you want to make for your death or your loved one's death.
That's one thing I will always stress is please, always get pre-arrangements done, because there is so many times I've had families just come in and just shrug their shoulders. They don't know. They have no idea what their loved one wants. And those are the hardest ones, because we've got to take things in baby steps, because they've never done this. They don't know. We'll get them through it, but it's just a lot easier when you've talked with your loved one and you tell them death is a taboo thing. I get it. Nobody wants to talk about it, but it's going to happen to us all. We can't escape it. So make sure you tell somebody. That's the best thing you can ever do for your family, is tell them what you want done, and that saves a lot of heartache and headache for your family, especially. We're going to get them through it, but it's just how it's going to affect them. And when they come in, because some of them have a chip on their shoulder because they just don't know and they're scared. And they think it's going to cost $80,000 to bury dad. No, it's not. It's not. It's never that much. But what I'm saying is they have this irrational fear that they don't know, and they're very upset by it. So I hope that I can alleviate some people's fears, and knowing that, unfortunately the day is going to come where you have to be in that position. So hopefully you get somebody, hopefully you get a director that's, that will, take good care of your family. Google them, see what their ratings are. People aren't afraid to say, if they got mistreated, they got, whatever, something didn't happen, they'll leave that on there. So, look and make sure that, they're up and up, do your homework. I mean, that's all I can say. Hopefully, you can get somebody that's knowledgeable and will take care of you. And that's the ultimate name of the game, is taking care of the family.
What he said.
Yes.
At least I hope I'm pointing it. I'm not sure. It's hard. But yes, what this lovely, amazing gentleman said. And thank you again for teaching us. Have a good night, everybody. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Greetings and Shabibans. We are the Retro Reductibus Cephala Podcast, a long-form bi-weekly show that celebrates all the things that made growing up awesome.
Yeah, that sounds good, but I don't know what all those words mean.
I think what Parasite seems trying to say is that on Retro Red Octopus, we explore a range of retro goodness, from toys, video games, and movies, to cartoons, and even snacks and school lunches.
Oh.
And we do it all with a positive spin, a slew of killer guests, and some very adult language.
And you know what else is cool?
No.
This crazy show is part of the Door King Podcast Network with new episodes every Tentacle Tuesday.
What's that?
And if waiting 2 weeks for a new episode gives you a sad, know that we drop bonus episodes all the time, like the off-format Crow's Nest and an interview series we call The Brig.
You can listen to Retro Red Octopus on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or any app that's cool enough to carry the only show that celebrates all the things that make growing up awesome.